Picture this. Your child is at the top of a climbing structure at the park, higher than you are comfortable with. Their hands are gripping the bar, their knees are shaking slightly, and every instinct in your body is already moving you toward them before you have even made a conscious decision to move. You are 3 steps closer before you realize it. And you say the words that come so automatically, they feel like breathing. Be careful. And your child looks down at you and climbs back down. Safe. Fine. And you feel relieved. But here's what nobody told you about that moment. That relief you felt. That was not just relief that your child was safe. That was also the sound of something inside your child going quiet. Something that needed to stay loud a little longer. Something that, if you had stayed on that bench just 30 more seconds, would have changed the architecture of your child's brain in a way that no classroom, no therapy session, and no parenting book could have replicated. Today I am going to show you exactly what that something was. The Scandinavian philosophy that is quietly building the most emotionally resilient children on the planet. 2 specific concepts behind it, and what the science says about why the thing that feels like good parenting in that moment is sometimes the thing standing between your child and genuine emotional strength. But we have been told that a good parent keeps their child safe, and that is absolutely true. But somewhere in the last 30 years, safe became something else entirely. It became comfortable. It became never afraid. It became never uncertain, never struggling. And that shift, quiet and completely well-intentioned, has produced something that nobody planned and nobody wanted. A generation of children whose nervous systems have never practiced being afraid in a manageable way. And a nervous system that has never practiced fear does not become a fearless nervous system. It becomes a fragile one. Because fear is not the enemy of resilience. Fear that is never survived is. The first concept is called friluftsliv. It is a Norwegian word that translates loosely as open-air life. But it is far more than a preference for the outdoors. It is a foundational philosophy built on a belief that most modern Western parenting has quietly abandoned. That the natural world, with all its physical challenge, its unpredictability, and its genuine manageable risk, is not something to protect children from. It is something to raise them inside of. Scandinavian children spend hours outside every single day, regardless of weather. Snow, rain, wind, darkness, minus 10 degrees. Norwegian kindergartens, called friluftsbarnehager, meaning outdoor nurseries, operate entirely outside year-round. Children as young as 2 are climbing trees, navigating steep, uneven terrain, building fires under supervision, and working through physical challenges that would close down a playground in most Western countries within 24 hours of opening. And here is what the data shows about what this produces. A 2017 study published in the Scandinavian Journal of Educational Research found that children who regularly engage in outdoor unstructured physical challenge show significantly higher scores in emotional regulation, frustration tolerance, and what researchers call stress inoculation. That phrase is worth stopping on. Stress inoculation, not stress elimination, not stress avoidance. The brain's trained capacity to encounter fear, move through it, and arrive on the other side knowing something it could not have known any other way. I survived that, which means I can survive this. Because here is what neuroscience has now confirmed across decades of research. A brain that has never practiced being afraid in a safe context does not develop into a calm brain. It develops into a brain that is easily overwhelmed, because it has no reference point for surviving discomfort. Every new challenge feels like the first one. Every new fear feels unsurvivable. Not because the child is weak, but because the child was never given the chance to discover they were strong. Now here is the specific mechanism inside the brain, and this is where it becomes impossible to unsee once you understand it. When a child stands at the top of that climbing structure with shaking hands and looks down, their body floods with cortisol. Heart rate rises, palms sweat, breathing shallows. This is the full stress response activating in real time. In the typical modern parenting response, an adult rushes in. Be careful. Come down. I will help you. The stress response is interrupted before it can complete its natural cycle, and the child's brain records something at a neurological level that the parent never intended to teach. I cannot handle this without someone rescuing me. That lesson, repeated hundreds of times across childhood, does not build a child who feels safe because they are protected. It builds a child who only feels safe when someone else is managing their fear for them. But in the Scandinavian model, the parent stays on the bench, the child stands at the top, the cortisol rises, and then something happens that is worth more than any praise, any reward, any encouragement a parent could ever offer. The child makes a decision entirely on their own. They grip tighter, they find their footing, they move, and they come down safely. In that moment, the stress response completes its full natural cycle. Cortisol rises, peaks, and falls. And the brain permanently records the experience with a label attached to it that will never fully disappear. I was afraid. And I was okay. Developmental psychologists call this a mastery experience. And research from Stanford's psychology department has found that mastery experiences accumulated through physical challenge in early childhood are among the strongest predictors of emotional resilience, not just in childhood, but through adolescence and into adulthood. Not confidence built from being told you are great. Not resilience built from encouragement. Resilience built from the actual lived experience of being afraid and discovering, through your own body and your own decision, that fear does not have the final word. That is something no parent can give a child with words. Only experience can give it. And every time a parent rushes in too soon, they take that experience away with the best possible intentions. The second concept is called janteloven, applied to parenting language. And Scandinavian parents have largely removed one specific phrase from their vocabulary. That phrase is be careful. But research from the University of Copenhagen, the phrase be careful, when used repeatedly during a child's challenge, actually increases the child's anxiety response rather than reducing it. Because from inside a child's developing brain, be careful is not a helpful instruction. It is not information the child can use. It is an alarm. It signals that something out there is dangerous and that the child is not equipped to handle it. Scandinavian parents replace it with something neurologically different. Instead of be careful, they ask, what is your plan? Instead of stop, they ask, do you feel safe? Instead of rushing toward the child, they say, I am here if you need me. These are not simply kinder words. They are different instructions to a different part of the brain. What is your plan activates the prefrontal cortex, the thinking, reasoning, problem-solving brain. And that shift, practiced hundreds of times across childhood, is precisely how a child builds what psychologists call internal locus of control. The deep neurological conviction that I am the one who navigates my own experience. Conviction, once built, does not stay on the climbing structure. It follows the child into every classroom, every friendship, every failure, every moment of genuine difficulty that life will eventually and inevitably produce. This philosophy does not ask something difficult of the child. Children are already wired for this. Watch any toddler left alone in a room, and within 60 seconds, they will find the highest thing available and begin climbing it. The difficulty this philosophy places is entirely on the parent. It asks the parent to sit with their own fear while their child learns to navigate theirs. And the single most important skill a parent of a young child can develop is learning to tell the difference between a child who is unsafe and a child who is simply uncomfortable. Because those two things look almost identical from a parent's perspective, but they require completely opposite responses. Next time your child is at their edge, physically or emotionally, pause before you speak. Ask yourself the question, are they unsafe or are they uncomfortable? If the answer is uncomfortable, stay back, watch, let the cortisol complete its cycle, and when they come through it, do not say good job. Say you figured that out. Because those 3 words do something that good job never can. They do not tell the child they performed well. They tell the child something about who they are. You are someone who figures things out, and identity, once formed at that level, drives behavior more powerfully than any rule, any reward ever could. The goal was never to raise a child who is never afraid. The goal is to raise a child who knows exactly what to do when fear shows up. And that child is not built in comfort. They are built at the edge of it. One shaking hand at a time. One quiet parent on a bench at a time. One cortisol cycle completed alone at a time. If this changed the way you see your child's fear, share it with one parent who needs to hear it today, and subscribe to Wise Roots Parenting, because there is a lot more coming.